What was the most defining feature of the Cold War? Espionage, a fancy word for spying, you could say. There were spies everywhere back in the Soviet era. The spy rings inspired some legendary movies and characters like James Bond, the British MI6 agent. Now imagine if a movie were to be made on the spy rings of 2020. I can tell you that the mastermind of the most notorious spy ring would be a Chinese sitting somewhere in mainland China. And I'm not being racist, I'm just stating the obvious. China has been operating spy rings like never before. And in its web are people of all descriptions, journalists, political leaders, policymakers, researchers, you name it, and you will find them on the Chinese payroll. An Australian MP is currently being investigated. His name is Shaukat Mosalman, that's how he calls himself. This man is extremely pro-Beijing, we are told, and he is very vocal about it. In the recent months, he has even lauded the Chinese response to the Wuhan virus. That move itself is enough to set alarm bells ringing. Now, technically, China does not need spies to eavesdrop. It has technologies like Huawei or Zoom for that job. So why have spies at all? Because the task for human agents is to influence policies. Since the Communist Party can only control the circus at home, it needs agents abroad to generously dish out the party's propaganda. And who better to do this job than a legislator? And this man is not a lone wolf. There are several others working for him, or working for China. While some are influencing policies, others are stealing information and critical research. They are placed in some of the world's top research labs, and they are being paid in millions to smuggle information to the dragon's nest. The man on your screen is Charles Lieber. He was a professor at Harvard University for a really long time. Only earlier this year, US authorities found out that Lieber was working closely with China with a lab in Wuhan. Beijing paid him $1 million. What for? US authorities busted two other Chinese agents. Yang Qingye, she was a researcher at Boston University, but before that, she was in the Chinese army. And then there is cancer researcher Zhao Zhongzheng. He was arrested in Boston at the airport. Authorities found 21 biological samples in his bag. He was allegedly flying to China and closely working with the Chinese. It does not end there. There are Chinese agents in some 500 odd foreign universities. They're masquerading as Confucius scholars. On the Chinese payroll are also journalists. China is also approaching journalists to amplify its talking points. They're being offered overtures, sponsored trips or junkets to China. What they have to do in return is speak in favor of Uyghur camps or cheer China's coronavirus response, write editorials praising Beijing. And I'm not making up any of this. I have numbers. The International Federation of Journalists recently carried out a survey. Journalists from 58 countries were asked one question. Did Beijing reach out to them, offer them something? Turns out, in at least 29 of these countries, journalists had been on trips to China. Some of the respondents said that China has a visible presence in their national press. Two-thirds of the respondents said that they were approached by Chinese entities. This is China's non-traditional espionage, one that is an integral part now of Xi Jinping's plan of global dominance. In no way am I saying that Beijing alone is guilty of spying. Espionage and counter-espionage have been around for centuries. Every other country has intelligence agencies, but what China is doing is escalating the spy war, recruiting like never before, eavesdropping, stealing information and secrets like never before. You know why? Because China does not understand fair play. So this is Beijing playing foul.